chronic pain can change your life in a very negative way. And the VA recognizes that, but they don't necessarily say it out loud. So let's connect the dots for them. Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to talk about depression, secondary to chronic pain. Many veterans, and I know the Vietnam era veterans, Gulf War veterans, specifically those who have been in theater. And I'm not saying that combat veterans are the only ones that matter, and I'm not saying those who stayed in the States and never really went somewhere don't have this, but I'm just telling you from my experience talking to others, those who have been in theater during a wartime, those folks have more chronic pain than those who were back in the States. Again, I'm not diminishing anybody's ability to go out and do this, but I just want to point it out. If you've been in theater and you have chronic pain, you should be getting it diagnosed. You should be getting it looked at. You should be getting VA compensation for it. Now, once you get that, you need to understand what happens or what's happened in your life due to the chronic pain, okay? The chronic pain has led to missed hobbies, missed work, missed family activities, missed church, missed friends, missed going out to dinner, missed getting up out of the bed because you just couldn't do it one day, right? All of these things happen. It destroys people's sleep. It destroys people's relationships. It can destroy people's work life, quite honestly. So if you have that chronic pain, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Get your diagnosis. Once you got your formal diagnosis for this, right? Think about all of those things I just talked about, how that can potentially affect you psychologically, right? And there's no misconceiving that, listen, if you lose a loved one, if a loved one passes on, you feel a pain. And this is just an example. You feel a pain, right? Does that pain make you feel happy about life? No. It makes you feel depressed about life. So when you have chronic pain, you're constantly being taken out of your normal world, and you're constantly being reminded by your body that, hey, dummy, we can't do that. We can't go walk an entire, amusement park. We can't get on that roller coaster. We can't go hang out with our friends and have dinner because you squirm and you got too much pain going on. We can't necessarily make it to work today because if I have to sit in that chair or stand up at that machinery or stock those shelves or be a cashier or whatever it is you do, right? If you can't do it because of chronic pain, it starts to play a toll up here. And you need to be very, very aware of that because depression can lead to even worse things. You don't want to go there, okay? So when you're claiming that depression as a secondary to chronic pain, there is no combat stressor proof, right? You do need to make the nexus between You do need to make the connection between the depression that you have and your chronic pain. That is very simply done. You can do that mostly in a personal statement, and you can use my personal statement builder if you want to do that. But that's a huge advantage. You don't have to prove a combat stressor, okay? You can only have one mental health rating. So if you have another mental health rating, let's say you have a 10% or a 30% for depression. The VA must rate you under the most severe condition, okay? So if the chronic pain causes you depression, or causes you, let's say you have a 30% for anxiety, and the chronic pain causes you depression, or vice versa. You have depression, And, the chronic pain causes you anxiety because you're going to miss work. You're not going to be able to keep your job. You're missing out with your friends, family, don't get to see your kids, grandkids, whatever, parents, right? That the VA has to look at the most severe condition. Okay. So if you already have a mental health rating, I would say that if it's a 50 or a 70%, you're probably not going to go very far with depression secondary to chronic pain. Okay. But if it's a 10% or a 30% or a 0%, then you might be able to connect the dots and actually get yourself compensated for those connections, right? So, sleep and isolation are the main factors when it comes to depression caused by or aggravated by chronic pain. Pain-related insomnia, very common. The withdrawal you get, pain-related withdrawal, because you can't get yourself to go do stuff, those amplify depression. They make it to where, you see on TV, they have these shows and people don't ever want to get out of their bed. They're completely depressed. They don't want to be around other people. They become loners. They become hermits. They don't want to do anything around anyone ever. That could be driven by depression. Some people just want to be left alone. And that's fine as long as you're happy. But if you're depressed and that's why you're alone, that's the problem, right? So let's talk about the realities of ratings, quite honestly, for this condition. It's going to be 30%, 50%, 70% most of the time, especially if it's a secondary condition, right? Most veterans qualify for a higher rating than they expect for depression secondary to chronic pain or depression in general because they normalize their symptoms. And I can't stress this enough. If it's normal for you to wake up and just feel like, whatever, life sucks today, you've gotten used to that over the years. That's not normal, okay? I know because I do that. I run into those times. That happens to me multiple times per month. It just is not normal because there's other days where I may wake up and just go, dang, I can't wait to get the day started. Now, my day may roller coaster, but I've started out with, hey, let's get going. Let's do this. Let's do that. Depression comes and goes, but, that will show the severity of your symptoms into the ratings. 30, 50, 70 is what you're shooting for. If you're a 0 or if you're a 30, I'm going to tell you right now, it's worth a shot. You can't necessarily go down. Make sure you read the 38 CFR and know what a 30% requires, what a 50% requires, and 70% requires. Now, with that said, there are mental health changes coming this year. They've been validated by the VA finally that they're actually going to happen. We've been talking about them for 3 years on multiple channels here on YouTube. The VA has been postponing, but they are committed to getting this out this year, these rating changes, to finish off all the rating changes. That mental health rating change can be a positive or a negative for any individual, quite honestly. I personally see that it could be positive for some veterans, but I can see where it would be detrimental to others. I don't know that I would say that most veterans would be reduced if they had another CMP exam and were determined to have gotten better. I think with the new criteria that's coming out, most people will be seen as, oh crap, he's a lot worse than we thought. She's a lot worse than we thought. So keep that in mind. But know this, mental health secondaries are real and they're powerful.